Hello and welcome to Hitting the Bar, the football podcast. This is episode 57. I'm Chris Karle.
And I'm Geoff Saunders.
All right, well, we've had a bit of a break, Geoff, so there's lots to get through. But before that, traditionally, your trivia question.
There is one player, and only one player, to have played for Barcelona and Real Madrid, and also Inter and Milan. Not only that, this player has played on both sides in both derbies. Who is it?
That's fascinating. I mean, you don't get many players that cross over the line like that. To have played for all four of those teams is quite remarkable. We'll find out at the end, but before we do, as I say, a lot to get through. Can we start with your team, West Ham, who had a pretty poor start to the season and then played away at Leicester without their manager due to COVID and absolutely smashed them? According to your mate Kirk, who's also a West Ham fan, could have been 6.
Indeed, and is there any correlation between David Moyes not being there and us playing well? Yeah, inquiring minds are keen to know.
It's kind of a strange thing and a bit of a joke that David Moyes was at home, self-isolating. I would imagine he feels quite isolated as it is at West Ham, but for the 2 games that you've just won, he wasn't there. But how come Leicester, who've been so good for the first 4 games of this season, suddenly get beaten by West Ham who've not?
I've mentioned this many times before, and I'll come back to it again. Ndidi didn't play. When Ndidi doesn't play for Leicester, they struggle.
So do you think without Ndidi then Leicester are very ordinary? But aren't West Ham quite ordinary as well? What I mean, suddenly they've got 3 goals against Leicester. They beat Wolves the week before, which I thought was even just as incredible. I think we're forgetting that one. So that's 7 goals in 2 games for West Ham. What's going on? Because they did look before that like they might struggle this season.
Well, they did, but you have to look at the quality of the players, and the players there are very, very high quality players. West Ham should be in the top 8, just based on the players that they've got. It's because Moyes is incompetent and can't get the... Well, he is. You're laughing, but it's true. He is. He's completely incompetent. He can't put his best 11 on the pitch. Now, if you don't put your best 11 on the pitch, then you're going to struggle, aren't you? And having got an 11 on the pitch, they don't know what they're doing. And you watch them, and they've looked completely hopeless, hapless even. And fortunately, he was removed from the situation, and whoever the coach is there... Whoever the coaches were that were there, they have a bit more intelligence than he did, and they went out and played. They're good players. They just need somebody behind them who will pick the best players, send them out to do what they do best.
Yes, you kind of had a sort of mental comedy image in my head then of the assistant manager who gave a press conference and said, "We will be in touch with David Moyes at all times during the match." And I just imagine him turning to the players and going, "No, we won't. It's okay." We're going to play football this week, lads. So an amazing thing for West Ham. Their next game is against Tottenham, who we'll speak about in a moment. But that day, last Sunday, it started off Leicester 0, West Ham 3. People were a little bit shocked. The next game was Manchester United against Tottenham, which I think most people had down as a draw. It didn't happen that way. Man United won, Tottenham 6. It all started to plan. Man United got a penalty. I think it was while the fixtures were being drawn up back in March. But Man United got a penalty within 34 seconds. Bruno Fernandes scored the goal. And it all looked like everything was going to plan. Tottenham then took the ball, went up the other end and scored. And then scored again and again until it got to 6. Man United fans, of course, are making the excuse possibly that they lost by so many that they went down to 10 men when Tottenham were already, by the way, 2-1 up. Lamela went down in the box like he'd been shot, having had his face stroked by Anthony Martial and having pushed Martial with his elbow to move him out the way, and Martial reacted and stroked his face or slapped his face, and Lamela paused and then threw himself to the ground and got Martial a red card. However, that is a red card incident.
Lamela did not get Martial a red card. Martial got Martial a red card. Every single professional footballer knows, and they know this because it's written in the rules, in the book of rules. It's there in black and white. You put your hand to someone else's face, you get sent off. It was Martial's fault, 100%.
Yes, I mean, Lamela made a meal of it, but the Tottenham players have been told by Mourinho several times, but especially when he took over, that they're too soft and kind and nice and polite. And he told, I won't repeat the word, but it's a very rude word, that they've got to start being nasty bastards, basically, but a lot stronger word than that. And you can just imagine Lamela going, "There's one for you, boss." They've started playing like adults in a way. They've started playing the same game everybody else has played. But a hand to face is a red card incident, and that's the end of that. I still don't understand why there wasn't a penalty. We don't know, do we? I mean, the ball was out for a corner. Maybe it's that.
Yeah, but I remember reading the laws of football, the book, The Laws of Football, the actual one, and it said it doesn't matter where the ball is. The ball can be out of play. What matters is where was the offence committed. And if that was in the penalty area, which it was, it should have been a penalty.
Yeah, we didn't need it, as it happened in the end. I was going to say quietly surprised, but actually I was very noisily happy that Tottenham beat them 6-1. I thought it was a tremendous display by Tottenham. Almost, again, this sort of telepathic relationship between Kane and Son. And Tottenham looked really good. I mean, 3 days before they beat Maccabi Haifa, I know not exactly the same competition, 7-2, so the scoring goals like anybody would want.
And I think the reason why that's happening is Ndombele is playing. He's the cog that makes it all work. He moves the ball on quickly. When Tottenham's energy levels are high, and when they're moving the ball quickly, they're very, very good in attack. And Ndombele does that for them. When they start this slow possession, or we'll move it from the opposition's penalty area back to our goalkeeper in 3 minutes, well, they struggle because they're crap at it. But when they move the ball, when they have high energy, move the ball forward quickly, they're very good attacking side. I'm not sure that Kane and Son have any telepathic relationship at all. They just both want to go forwards. You want to play Kane in behind the defence, don't you? It's really quite simple. And Son needs the ball behind the defence. So, you reduce the game to that sort of simplicity and it looks great.
I mean, I'm a Tottenham fan, so obviously, I'm going to bang on about it a bit. Watching them all, yes, you're right, when they're going forward, when they've got the bit between their teeth and they're enjoying it, they're quite devastating. As long as they keep going forward and they don't give it to Harry Winks, who then turns around and passes it back again. But even he was passing it forward. I thought he was ill. I thought there was something wrong with him. But he was facing the right way for a change, and suddenly Tottenham looked devastating.
Yeah, but don't forget that the player that Winks has modelled himself on, Wilshere. Wilshere's made 7 forward passes in his career. So.
Yes, we can maybe mention Wilshere, who's without a club now. Maybe he can get the job as the Arsenal mascot. He get more time on the pitch than normal.
Maybe he could be Gareth Bale's caddy, then he could have loads of clubs.
Hey! Yeah, so Tottenham looked brilliant against Manchester United. Nothing to do with Martial being sent off, I don't think. We would have won the game anyway.
I think Martial being sent off turned a 4-1 into a 6-1, to be honest.
Yeah, before we move on to the next game, I just want to mention to you that 3 days before that we beat Maccabi Haifa in the Europa League. Good victory, 7 goals scored, confidence was up. 2 days before that we beat Chelsea in the EFL Cup. It was a draw, there were penalties and all that, but the funniest thing I've seen a manager do in a long time is, and of course it is one of his, he beat 2 of his previous clubs in 1 week, did Mourinho, and he didn't hide it. He put his arm, linked his arm with his assistant manager and skipped down the tunnel to the dressing room. It was like watching a 7-year-old kid who'd just been told he was going to Disneyland. I don't think I've ever seen Mourinho actually look happy and not in control of his own body language. It was brilliant.
And then he patted little Ollie on the head. So there.
Never mind. Ollie may be a gonner, Solskjaer there. So that was the Tottenham result, 6-1 away at Man United. Nobody expected that. And Mourinho said afterwards, fantastic result, I'm pleased with my boys, all the usual thing. And he said, great result, but the position we have in the league, not so much. Obviously, we should have beaten Newcastle. There was a dodgy penalty there. Poor first day against Everton. But let's talk about Ollie. I mean, you've said before that he shouldn't be in the job because they were abject. I mean, never mind, Tottenham were brilliant. That Tottenham played very well, but they took full advantage of Man United not being very good.
Well, the important thing for me is not that Manchester United were not very good in that match. They've been no better in any other match this season. It's just that this time the opposition really took advantage of it. He's sending his team out to do something that I'm not sure any of them understand, and hope that Bruno Fernandes can come up with some magic and those forwards can whistle up a penalty or sometimes a goal from open play, to be fair. Sometimes. There does not appear to be a plan, a scheme, tactics or anything there. Now, I am absolutely delighted that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the manager of Manchester United, and I hope he stays for the rest of the season. But it's not what that club needs at all.
People have said, well, it's a difficult situation. He's a club legend because of something that happened back in 1999, coming on as a sub and all that. But they are saying now that that Ed Woodward, the chairman of Manchester United, has made it quite clear that he wouldn't. flinch from sacking Ollie if things continue this way, because it would be difficult. But the fans are, as normal, behind Ollie because he's a club legend. But surely even the fans can see that he's just not up to the job. He hasn't got the wherewithal, much like Southgate, who we'll talk about later. But he doesn't look like he's got the tactical nous of a Jose, of a Pep, or of a Klopp. He's out of place among those big tactical geniuses.
Yeah, he's very much out of place, and there's no point comparing him to the Klopps, the Guardiolas, and these people. You know, they are genuine geniuses, and they've moved the game forwards. But look at Moyes down at Crystal Palace. Now, he's not recognised as a tactical genius, but he does know how to set a team up to be incredibly difficult to beat and good on the break. And Solskjaer isn't even doing that. He's not even at that level. Now, Hodgson has got 30 years more experience as a manager, and he brings it to bear, and that's why Palace are doing as well as they are. But Solskjaer, I don't think he's adding anything to the mix there.
They look disorganised, Manchester United, and again it was one of those, as you've said, about West Ham, and you've said it about Arsenal before, that they looked like they didn't understand what they were supposed to be doing. But it didn't. It was worse than that for me. It looked like they hadn't been told to do anything. Just, you're 11 guys who know how to play football. I think you're probably a centre-back, so you stand there. I know you're a goalkeeper. You've got a green jersey on. You go and stand there, and the rest of you sort of fill out the gaps. And Man United have only managed to get to where they are recently because of Fernandes.
Oh, absolutely. It's completely down to Fernandes. And the one thing that Manchester United fans have got to start being honest about is look at the performances of Maguire. I mean, just shocking. I mean, it is really bad. You've got to take the 80 million fee out of it and just assess him as a player. And he's half the player that he was at Leicester. Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up, because he was probably culpable for 2 of Tottenham's goals. And I was sat with Man United fan, our friend Honest Dave, of 93.6 Global Radio, for whom we do a football show every Saturday on radio, and on the radio there, and he just kept saying, what is Maguire doing? When we watched the replay of the first goal and the second goal that he was culpable for, he said, what's he doing flapping about in the air like that, or looking behind him, looking for the ball? It was terrible. And he was the same for England this last week. And I think that price tag has made him worse, because obviously it's a burden to bear, but I think people are analysing him more and looking at him more, but I'm not sure he should even be picked for England.
Based on form, he definitely should not be picked for England. And it's only the price tag that suddenly made him undroppable for England. I mean, throughout the World Cup, he was not a fixture, and people were not saying, oh, Maguire must play, Maguire must play. It was only after the transfer to Manchester United. And he left Leicester City, and Leicester City brought Soyuncu in, and their defence got better. Their defence is better without Maguire. And that was when Maguire was playing the best that he's played in his career. And it wasn't just the 2 goals against Tottenham, but in the previous match, he was at fault for 2 of the goals. It's been going on for quite a long time now.
So do we think Ollie will be out by Christmas?
He probably should be. I hope he's not. I hope he stays. The problem that Woodward has got is that he's fired the previous 3 or 4, and this is very much his choice. And at some point, the stock exchange is going to start asking, but you keep picking these people and then firing them with big payoffs for the rest of their 5-year contract, or 6 years, as it was with Moyes. What about you?
Yeah, so he's got to stick with him to cover his own tracks in a way. But there is a call for him to go, Solskjaer, and of course, former Tottenham manager Mauricio Pochettino is in the mix. And I read this week that Man City are expecting Guardiola to leave at the end of the season, and they would be looking to Pochettino as well. Which Manchester club should Pochettino choose, if either, or maybe should go elsewhere?
I think he should choose Manchester City, because they're much better run and they will operate in a way that suits him better. Manchester United, well, I hope he doesn't go to Manchester United, because Pochettino is a fantastic manager. I really hope he doesn't.
Me neither, because if that Man United team had been a Pochettino United team, given on paper how talented that Man United team is, he would have organised them and we would have probably lost 3-1. But if it had been a Pochettino United team, we would have seen a completely different display from United, and he would have changed things if things had started to go wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Just think, though, since Ferguson retired, Manchester United have paid £1 billion for players. £1 billion. Just imagine how good they'd be with Pochettino as a manager. Remember why he left Tottenham? Because they wouldn't buy players. They wouldn't move players on in order to make space for new players. He would love it, wouldn't he? To be at a team that will actually spend the money. But then Manchester City do as well. Manchester City don't spend as much as Manchester United, but they do spend it better.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Tottenham have now spent a bit of money, and just a fun fact for you: Reguilon, who we signed along with Bale from Real Madrid, just played his first 5 games we've had in the season so far. Didn't feature in all of them, but he has just joined the Premier League, just joined Tottenham, come from a foreign country. He has made more successful tackles than any other player in the entire Premier League this season.
What, more than Wan-Bissaka? Really? Wow. Well, that's incredible in that he's done that, but also that Wan-Bissaka is not leading the tackles league table, which does point to something else being wrong at Manchester United.
Well, yeah, if if he is not even getting the tackles in, there's a problem there. There's a problem there anyway. Later that day, so we've had Leicester 0, West Ham 3. Didn't believe that when I saw that. Watched Tottenham destroy Man United. Still don't believe it. And then a bit later on, I mean, I can't even say it without laughing. Aston Villa 7, Liverpool 2. Is something happening with all the goals that are being scored because of this whole Corona nonsense? You know, there's no fans to watch you, so you feel a bit freer to go on and have attempts on goal. Is there something happening with that? And how come lowly little Aston Villa beat Liverpool? Is it because they were just pinging balls over the top of the high press? How did they do it?
Okay, go back to your first point about the number of goals. The same thing is happening in American football, in the NFL. Yeah, the scores are very high. The reason why I think it is related to this nonsense COVID-19 thing is that coaches are having much less time to coach defences. The attacking side doesn't need as much coaching because they're creative players and they kind of know what to do anyway. But defences need to be coached all the time and have enough time to coach them for the opposition they're about to play. And one thing that is very apparent I watch a lot of American football, is that the scores are up there a lot, and they're questioning, well, why suddenly is there more scoring? And in real football that we know, the same thing is happening, and I'm convinced it's because coaches haven't had as much time to coach their defences. But attacking players just do what attacking players do. Aston Villa and Liverpool, I'll tell you what, if I knew the answer to that, then someone in Liverpool would be paying me £1 million a week. It might be simply that just sometimes you get this perfect performance from a team and a bad performance on the other side. And sometimes they come together and everyone just has to go, oh, wow, this is incredible, and not read too much into it. I'm sure Klopp will understand exactly why the goals were scored. You can analyse that. That's quite simple. You can see, okay, he didn't do this and he didn't do that. And then you get on the training pitch and you try and sort that out. But what actually happened, I don't know. Those players at Aston Villa are not good enough to beat Liverpool 7-2. It was. I think it's just this perfect storm thing that happened.
So there's a difference between Tottenham putting 6 past Man United and Aston Villa putting 7 past Liverpool. One was because Tottenham have started to play well and Manchester United are in disarray. The second was just a weird one-off, is what you're saying. I mean, a lot of the, reading the commentary as it was happening and watching the game and everything, and the reports afterwards, a lot of people were saying that, have Liverpool been found out? Well, the answer is no. Because what Aston Villa did was all they could do, really, I suppose, was wait for the high press and then just circumvent it by bunging balls over the top of it for whoever could run through. Maybe that was it. But also, do you think Ross Barkley, who had a blinder in that game, I think he had 2 assists and a goal, was an inspired signing from Villa?
Inspired, I'm not sure inspired. He's always been a very good player, but it's a very good signing. And if he can work well with the other midfielders there, then don't see why not. I mean, it was a very good signing for them.
And of course, Jack Grealish, the forgotten man of England, who actually got a 90-minute start, a full game for England the other day, and very well deservedly won man of the match. What do you make to Jack Grealish? Because he was compared to Paul Gascoigne this week, and he said he was very flattered, and he doesn't see it himself, but he'd love to be as successful or as good as he was. What do you make to Grealish? Because I want to talk about England now. And Southgate. Grealish is too good for Southgate's teams, isn't he? He doesn't fit because he's a good player.
Yeah, not just that he's a good player, but that he does individualistic things. And I've been saying for as long as I can remember, international football is won when you get the ball into the penalty area on the ground. And that's what a dribbler like Gascoigne did for England, and that's what Grealish can do for England. And he should be one of the first names on the team sheet. I would imagine Southgate is feeling sick that happened. He put him on hoping that he'd fail, and he showed he's got the class to be a superb international. But what Southgate wants is he wants Southgate controlling what happens, and he wants lots of defensive players. belt and braces in defence, and he doesn't trust creative players, and that's what Grealish is.
Yeah, I've been trying to find in my head a sort of an analogy or something. But all those players, the England players, when they play for their clubs, especially recently with Tottenham, for example, they're week in, week out for their club asked to paint a portrait or a stunning landscape. And then when England play, it's almost like they've been told to paint the front of a house white. Just get the job done and we'll move on to the next game. Watching England is not pretty, it's not enjoyable, it's just trying to get the job done. And every time Southgate gets away with it, but all they've done, as I say, is paint the front of a house, and then they go back to their clubs and make a stunning portrait. The game being the portrait, as it were. And I'm feeling, Southgate keeps getting away with it because they keep winning or drawing, and he's not being held to account because of that.
No, I think that's absolutely right. If we started off with Sancho on the right, Grealish coming in from the left in an inside forward position, Harry Kane up front, the opposition are going to be scared. They're going to go on the pitch thinking, how can we defend against this lot? And what Southgate keeps on, with the exception of last week, keeps on serving up is regulation English football, and everyone knows how to play that.
Yeah, it is. It's just a sort of, let's get through this game, a routine, let's just not be embarrassed and just get, 1-0, 2-1 win. Or if it's away, we can say we got a draw, and then he can say the usual thing, we've learnt a lot from this game. They're not retaining that information, no, are they? They just have to keep relearning it. But against Belgium, I looked at the bench, and obviously Kane has played a lot of games, I understand. But on that bench he had Sancho, he had Cody, and he had Kane, and on the pitch he had Henderson and Winks, and I'm thinking, no.
Well, first of all, if we move the question about whether Winks is good enough to be on the pitch to one side, you don't need two holding midfield players. So pick one of them. Henderson's better than Winks, so put Henderson in. And Declan Rice is better than both of them, so he should be the one who's in there. I find it extraordinary. And the first name on his team sheet is Maguire, who's just not playing well enough. He should be told, look, you're not going to feature in the next few England games. Just go and get your form back, and then we'll see you next season. And that's what should happen, but won't. We should have Grealish, Kane, Sancho, Declan Rice, a better goalkeeper than the Muppet from Everton, Pickford. Half decent shot stopper, but he's not a goalkeeper. Work on from there. We've got TA squared as a right back, brilliant right back. So all the elements there, the ingredients are there. You just need a manager who's switched on, who's woken up sometime in this millennium.
Well, I just wanted to mention Pickford. Yeah, we said Henderson was on the pitch and shouldn't have been. There was a Henderson who should have been and should have been and wasn't, and that was a goalkeeper. Jordan Pickford joined Everton in August 2017. Since that day, up until today, he has made more errors as a goalkeeper in the Premier League than any other goalkeeper, and we're including even Kepa of Chelsea in that. Jordan Pickford has made 11 errors, and that doesn't sound like a lot. Begovic, who doesn't even play anymore, is on the list. David De Gea, you won't be surprised, is also on the list, and Hugo Lloris. But he is the worst. That makes him officially the worst goalkeeper in the Premier League, kind of, statistically. And yet, Pickford was picked by Southgate, following Everton's game the previous weekend, where he was dreadful.
Yeah, and it sends a very bad message to the squad, because they all know these things. And by the way, that stat you said about errors, it's errors leading directly to a goal, or errors resulting in a goal. Yeah, the players know. The players can read as well, and they can watch a football match, and they know that their goalkeeper is not good enough. What do the two centre-backs and if you like, the blindside fullback do, knowing that their goalkeeper is not up to it? There's always an element of panic and indecision. All the things you see of England's defence, in fact. So I don't understand how Pickford and Maguire can even get in the squad.
There is something very strange with, for me, Southgate's selection process. It's been levelled at England managers before that all you have to do is be in the United squad or the Liverpool squad or even the Tottenham squad to get into the England team. But if you're in the West Ham, Burnley or Middlesbrough in the other leagues and you're brilliant and playing out of your skin, you won't get into the England team. Matter of top six against the others. And yet Southgate says he picks people on form, and yet in that case then Jamie Vardy should be playing because he's the top scorer, and yet he's got people like Pickford who are not on form. You've got people like Maguire, as you say, also not on form, and then you've got people who are like Cody and Sancho and sitting on the bench in a game against Belgium that we had to win, and in a game against the best team in the world officially currently, and then we win 2-1 and everybody's going, oh well, see, Southgate knows what he's doing. We just won 2-1 because it was a particular day when Belgium didn't take their shots.
And we won with a penalty and heavily deflected shot. It doesn't actually, you have to look past the results sometimes, look at the performance to say whether it was deserved or does it take us forward. And I'm not sure that performance takes us any further forward. We weren't terribly good. Neither were Belgium, to be fair. So we learned very little from it, other than Maguire and Pickford definitely still not up to it. Winks shouldn't. How can Winks even get in the Tottenham team? I don't know. I find that extraordinary. I suppose we have to say, oh great, we won 3 points. Who cares?
Well, again, it's the Nations League, and we may come to that at another point. But who cares? I mean, the whole point of the Nations League was it's supposed to do away with friendlies, so in order to prepare for it, we had a friendly the few days before. Beggars belief. However, before we move on just about Southgate again, it's papering over the cracks every time they play. We get away with, drawing with whoever, Denmark or whatever it is, and, lessons learnt, we're very good, we're moving forward, and he's getting away with this picking young prospects, and people are praising him for it, but there are no tactics on the field. But he's very much an FA kind of person. He looks well, he looks good, he's presentable, and he speaks well, and there's never going to be much controversy surrounding him. You'll never see him doing a Jose and rinsing out his players in public or shouting at them on the training field. But I don't think he's good enough, and I think it should be somebody else. But who do you think it should be?
My answer to that has always been Ron Atkinson, but we can't do that anymore. Because I just loved the way he used to manage teams, which was you get your best 11 out on the pitch, get as many of them as attacking players as possible, and say go out and have fun, boys. I really don't know. There are some very good young English managers, but do young managers want to take on that job? That's the problem. So at the moment, I really, really couldn't say.
If they have to be English. I don't know if they do. Wales have got Ryan Giggs, who's a Welsh person. I don't want to dwell on this, but it's his first job in management, which is really weird. I think, as you say, young managers, comparatively young, won't want it. I see the England job as something you should be given and deserve once you've had a club career in which you've been at several top clubs and won something. And you're ready for a semi-retirement, as in you're not working day in, day out, doing paperwork in the office at Manchester United or Tottenham. You come together, you watch the games. It shouldn't be something you do as a young man or somebody starting out in your career. So I don't know, the Chris Wilders of this world are obviously not ready for that, maybe. And I don't know, maybe it should be Jose Mourinho when he retires. At least he'd get them playing like a unit. You're making faces, Geoff. I know you don't agree, but I mean, Southgate, all he did was take Middlesbrough down.
It has to be somebody that we're talking about English players here. So it has to be somebody the English players will respect, which argues that he's probably got to have some medals, because the English football character is show us your medals. So I don't think we could do Jürgen Löw, for example, from Germany, whose managerial experience is pretty much zero until he got the German manager's job, after which he's been absolutely fantastic, one of the best international managers in the world, and terribly, terribly underrated. I really don't know. I'm still struggling to think of somebody that could do that job that would be respected by the players, that's actually achieved something. I mean, English managers haven't won very much in the last 20 years, have they? So I just don't know. But I do know that Southgate is not up to it. And this idea that you go and you get 5 men behind the ball plus your goalie, and that's what you work on, and then, you lot go out and do something. Jadon Sancho, I know what you do for Dortmund, but we want you to do something else. So pick a player because he's the best English player in Europe, and then get him doing something that he's not used to doing, which gives you the excuse to drop him because he's not very good at doing the things that he doesn't do. I find the whole Southgate thing very unpleasant, to be quite honest.
The whole Sancho thing, you've got this extremely talented player who plays well in his position. It's like opening a high-class restaurant and employing Gordon Ramsay, and then he turns up to the job in his chef's whites and telling him, no, you're the host tonight, you're front of house. You're the one giving the menus out. Why? And it's the same thing with half the players in the England team. We'll move on because there's been a little bit more controversy this last week. Liverpool and Manchester United have some proposals to reform English football. They're going to they would hand over 250 million quid immediately to the lower league clubs, which they're demanding. And then they would cut the Premier League down to 18 teams instead of 20. Whoever finishes 16th each year would go for a playoff against whoever finishes third in the championship. and there would be no more parachute payments when you get relegated.
Well, I would support all of those things because the parachute payments severely distort what do they call it now? Do they call it the first division or the championship? Oh, they call it the championship. Yeah, the parachute payments severely distort that, and I think it's wrong. And I think most EFL teams think that it's wrong as well. Go down to 18 teams in the league. Yeah, definitely. They need fewer matches. They'd also want the Premier League to not take part in the EFL Cup. And the Community Shield game to be scrapped. Yeah, I mean it's a load of nonsense, isn't it? So that your Premier League, your best teams would have fewer matches to play. Hopefully the quality would go up. Although I do suspect that all that will do is give them more time to play friendly matches abroad, which they get paid an awful lot of money for. But let's cross that bridge when we come to it. These things were talked about many, many years ago, and the Premier League did make an offer. I think certainly over 20 years ago, 25 years ago maybe, to the Football League to give 20% of their revenue to the Football League, and the Football League turned it down, which was foolish. This proposal says they'd give 25%. Now, because of the having fewer matches and not taking part in the EFL Cup and all this stuff, the effect on the remaining 18 teams would be they wouldn't lose very much money at all. So to me, it seems like an excellent idea. Now, there are things within this proposal which are more contentious, but I think if you say, okay, well, we'll take these things as a banker and we negotiate on all the rest, then to me it seems actually quite a decent set of proposals. There are things in there that I don't like, but treat it as a negotiation and get the best out of it. But Liverpool and Manchester United cannot walk away from the 25% and 250 million and the 18. They're there in black and white as their proposal. Everyone else should just say, yes, thank you very much, we'll have that. Now we'll start talking about the rest. And I think football would be much better for it.
Because I kind of disagree. I don't really care about the EFL Cup, the League Cup. I know it makes it much better for lower league teams to come up against top flight opposition. It's a money earner for them. I'm not sure about cutting the league down to 18 because I think it makes it less competitive and less games to watch. And that means surely less television money, less revenue. And I think this thing about, Tottenham, for example, played 6 matches in 11 days or something ridiculous like that this last 2 weeks. But they did it, and they kept winning. These are athletes. So cutting out a cup and cutting down the amount of games you play in the league, I don't see how the fans benefit from that, and after all, that's who it's for. Cutting out the Community Shield, it's one game. It's like a season opener. It's lost its, I suppose, ceremonial feel to it. It's a nothing game. But cutting that seems like they're like adding bits on that they can then delete from the negotiation. What's the point of scrapping the Community Shield? Not sure about that. I think 20 teams is a good amount. I think 18. The diversity will be gone a little bit, I think.
I don't know. The reason they didn't invent 18 out of thin air. The 18 was in the original proposal for the Premier League. It was always supposed to be 18 teams. And there was some scientific study done that this was the ideal number, etc., etc. And I'd be quite happy with that. I don't mind that at all.
As a Tottenham fan, I would hope that Tottenham would consistently be in that 18, and it going down to 18 doesn't make our chances of relegation anymore because we're never in that bottom 6 anyway, generally. But for teams like West Ham, actually, who do flirt with relegation from time to time, if you get rid of the 2 worst teams, if you like, 19th and 20th, your Norwiches of this world, the Fulhams, the Aston Villas, the next 3 teams, or 4 teams up from that, now have to try harder, or have to be better. That would sound like to be a good thing. It would be harder for them. Whereas before, maybe they were mid-table obscurity.
Yeah, but as you say, West Ham are more likely to be involved in that discussion than most of the other teams, and I'm quite happy about it. So we finished 14th last season, was it, something like that? And we'll do better this season. No, I don't mind that. It's a statistical thing, isn't it? Your chances go from 3 out of 20 to 2 out of 18. Okay, well, who cares? I think 18. I'd like the idea of 18.
Yeah, regarding relegation, then in a way, if you finish third from bottom, you can still stay up because you play in a playoff. So maybe that is fairer or more interesting. But that puts pressure on the Championship, doesn't it, a bit?
If you finished 16th currently, then you're definitely safe. Now there's a chance of you going down. So it's making it harder for Premier League teams and easier for Championship teams to go up, because in those playoffs there'll be three Championship teams and one Premier League team. So I think it's fair. I think it's a good idea, personally.
All right, well, we shall see what it all means. But let's move on. Let's have a little look at what's coming up this weekend. Yeah, in-form Everton come up against their across-the-park rivals Liverpool in the early game on Saturday. Generally, that's a 0-0, isn't it? But we're not getting many of those these days.
We're not, and it's in-form Everton against Liverpool, who will surely bounce back after that Villa performance, won't they? So 2-1 to Liverpool, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say something like that. Then Chelsea against Southampton should be routine for Chelsea. 2-0 to Chelsea for me.
You're saying Chelsea won't concede a goal? No, but Kepa's on the bench, presumably. So 2-0, 2-1 to Chelsea.
2-1 to Chelsea. Newcastle United against Manchester United. That could be an interesting one. Man United should bounce back, having been beaten by Tottenham. But Newcastle, they've not been good, have they? Again, we thought they'd changed and they haven't.
No, but you'd assume that Bruce has spent the time preparing for this match. The question is, how many penalties will Manchester United get, and when during the match? You know, they got the penalty against Tottenham much too early in the match to have the impact it usually does. 2-2.
Ooh, 2-2, that's interesting. Leicester City against Aston Villa. Leicester, like you said, if they haven't got Ndidi, they could struggle, and they do seem to, for me, they seem to suffer from a crisis of confidence. If they lose a couple of games, it seems to drain them completely of confidence, and they'll go on a long run of not winning. If they win a couple of games, their confidence seems to go straight up and they start dominating games. Having been beaten by West Ham, I'm going to still go for Leicester 2, Aston Villa 1.
I'll go 3-1. 3-1 to Leicester.
Sheffield United against Fulham. I mean, everybody beats Fulham this season so far. They're in a lot of trouble.
But Sheffield United haven't been doing very well either. So, actually, 0-0 is a good shout.
Yes, a 0-0 for that one. West Bromwich Albion against Burnley. Again, Burnley, another team like Sheffield United who've not been good so far.
Yeah, and West Brom have been scoring goals, which is a surprise. But the strength in Burnley is the defence. So, it's a 3-2 away win. So Burnley 3, West Brom 2.
I like that. That's great. Manchester City against Arsenal. Not often I say this, Geoff. Come on, City.
Well, indeed, yeah. 3-1 City.
3-1 City, we can hope. Sunday, Crystal Palace against Brighton. A sort of false derby. They see it, that's the way they see it, but nevertheless, I'm a big fan of Brighton, the way they play football, and we've had this discussion. Lamptey, who plays for them, a possible future England prospect. But I think that's a draw.
I'll say away win 2-1 to Brighton.
And then your team play my team, Tottenham Hotspur against West Ham United. Every time Tottenham play, I'm fearful of predicting it, because it's not like being a Liverpool supporter where you probably think, yeah, we'll win that one. But I am going to go for 2-0 to Tottenham.
2-0, no. I can't see there being nil involved here at all. I'm tempted to say 2-2 draw. I'll say a 2-2 draw with one caveat. If Bale comes on and gets more than 30 minutes, then Tottenham could win. Tottenham could get 5, because Bale against whichever right back West Ham put out. Right back is a nightmare position for West Ham. So it's basically going to be Bale against nobody down the left-hand side. Tottenham could have a lot of fun. But that assumes that Mourinho plays him in his position and he doesn't decide to be clever and play him as a right-sided inverted winger. No, 2-2.
Okay, we don't know if Bale will be featuring, but there is talk that he will. And then on Monday, Leeds United against the Wolverhampton Wanderers. Leeds getting a very credible draw against Man City last time out, and looking good for it as well. They play attractive football, Leeds. Yeah,
you'd have to say Bielsa will know enough to be able to shut down Wolves. So 2-1 to Leeds.
And I'm going to go for... Leeds United, but I am going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think Leeds are good enough to contain teams. I'm just not sure if they're good enough to get past them. The draw with Man City, they put absolutely everything into that, Leeds United. They didn't stop running. And they're a joy to watch in the Premier League. There are a few teams, again, like Brighton, who just are enjoyable to watch. And then teams that just aren't. There are a few teams that just aren't. That's all we've got time for, but before we go, time for Geoff's trivia question. This time with the answer.
Okay, the question was there is only one player to have played in the derbies for Barcelona, Real Madrid and Inter and Milan. Not only that, played on both sides in both derbies. And who was it? And the answer was Ronaldo, the proper one, the real one. And not only did he play on both sides in both derbies, but he scored for both sides in both derbies.
That's just incredible. We're talking, of course, the Brazilian Ronaldo. So he basically scored 4 Inter against Milan, 4 Milan against Inter, 4... Yeah, we get the picture. But that's an incredible thing. I think that's got to be unique, hasn't it? All right, brilliant. Thank you, Geoff. That's all we've got time for. We'll be back next week. I'm Chris Karle.
And I'm Geoff Saunders.
And that was Hitting the Bar, the football podcast.